The White House, as we indicated at the top, is sending what can only be described as mixed signals about who is actually running the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE. A court filing late last night said that Elon Musk is not technically part of DOGE and actually serves as a senior advisor to the president, which means he may serve in that role longer than originally articulated by the White House, which suggested it would be about a term of employment roughly 6 months. The White House press secretary was asked about this earlier today.
Elon Musk has been tasked with overseeing DOGE on behalf of the president, and DOGE employees, DOGE folks have been onboarding at respective agencies across our federal bureaucracy as political appointees, just like any other political appointee gets on board with the new administration with the changing of hands.
Jake Rosen joins us now from our D.C. bureau. Jake, help the audience make sense of what this legal filing says and suggests about not only what Elon Musk's role is, what the duration of it might be.
Right. This filing came late last night in a case that was actually decided further on earlier today, in which the government laid out via an affidavit from someone who works in the executive branch of the White House, basically an administrative staffer, who said that Elon Musk is just that, a senior White House advisor. They compared him to Anita Dunn, who worked under President Biden as kind of oversaw many buckets of government and many buckets of management within the White House. They said that he has no formal administrative role over DOGE. He has no formal administrative role over any part of what they're doing there and is certainly not the head of it. This came because there's a lawsuit by over 18 states' attorney general, all liberal, who sued the federal government, including Elon Musk, in his capacity as what they thought was head of DOGE and the Department of Government Efficiency, alleging that Elon Musk's role is unconstitutional. Now, obviously, this helped defend Elon Musk in this by basically saying it's not actually him, it's just a separate department in the government, and Musk is an advisor to the president. However, that does contradict really what we saw last week in the Oval Office between Trump and Elon Musk when Musk was there with his child, and they had that very contentious and controversial kind of press engagement, but really it stemmed from a lot of that.
And there's also this evolving conversation being conducted by the White House that in this advisory capacity, it's really the heads of the various agencies that are making these decisions on laying off federal workers, taking it out of Elon Musk, and they hope creating more legal protection for those layoffs themselves.
Right, and the problem, though, Major, is that what a lot of these lawsuits that have stemmed from these DOGE filings iterate, and especially across over about a dozen lawsuits aimed at DOGE, is that especially the ones aimed at those employees who'd been fired by Elon Musk's DOGE employees at these agencies, is that really nobody from the agencies knows who these people are. They usually come in and either take someone's badge away or they cut their access off. And, you know, I think when you think about what Trump has said about Elon Musk's role in this, you know, yes, Trump is the number one, person who makes final decisions of the White House, right? But the way that Elon Musk has essentially conveyed his role in this entire situation is that he's the one personally responsible for these layoffs. He and his team are doing X, he and his team are doing Y. And that certainly, at least by what the White House admitted last night, is not the case.
A stark distinction between what is said at podiums and what is said in a court of law. That is a pattern somewhat familiar to those of us who've watched Donald Trump for many, many years. Jake Rosen, thank you very much.